7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Welcome back into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We're sitting here in studio, not a full studio again anymore because it's just one of our regulars. It's not the Prop Bet Palooza, so the Tonys couldn't roll out of bed for this one. But I am sitting here in studio next to Spike, and it is the week after Super Bowl number
54.
Oh, now that it's over, he knows it. Right
Yeah, well, they said it about 117 times during the broadcast.
No pressure now, I get it. Super Bowl number 54, where the Chiefs staged a great fourth quarter comeback to beat the San Francisco 49ers. And say what you will, the game was an interesting one, mostly a lull for about 3.5 quarters, and then Shanahan does what Shanahan does, blows leads.
Yeah, well, and that kind of begs the question, is this completely on Shanahan, or is it on Garoppolo, which I guess we can talk about?
It's a tough one. You can point the finger at a lot of different people, including Garoppolo, Shanahan. Richard Sherman didn't have a great game himself either. He got toasted a few times by a few different receivers.
They were 6 for 6 targeting Sherman.
6 for 6 for 79 yards and a touchdown. I heard the stat actually last night that you were saying.
Yeah.
It was statistically the worst cornerback performance in Super Bowl history.
Ooh.
And I haven't heard Sherman say anything in the last
he's
3 or 4. He's been awfully quiet.
Yeah, surprising for him.
Yeah, but let's thank the sponsors here real quick. Obviously, first and foremost, 12-ounce Sports Radio, where we air. We're in a new format now. On radio, we air every weekend, but the new streaming service that 12-ounce provides in connection with Zyngo TV, Z-Y-N-G-O, we are also now part of their streaming service where you can catch our podcasts anytime, starting as soon as they begin streaming. Usually on Saturday, they'll start putting up our stream, and you can actually listen to it anytime, just like a regular podcast. It's kind of an interesting new concept. Seat Giant, promo code 12-ounce sports for your discounted sporting events, concerts, and theater tickets. And we have another sponsor that I probably should have been more prepared for.
Way to go.
Oh, and that is Zyngo TV. I told you, it's not Z-Y-N, it's Z-I-N-G-O. I can't keep up with everybody trying to rename things and their kids and funny names and stuff. Again, it's an all-new streaming service featuring 12-ounce Sports Network. It is on all of your streaming devices, Fire Sticks, etc., like that. It's channel 761. If you use promo code 12-ounce sports, Zyngo TV is free, where we will feature exclusive shows and sporting events, replays, and future live sporting events as well. So I'm super excited about that, being on this Zyngo TV, and 12-ounce sports is obviously excited about being able to broadcast live sports and replays as well for those sports. And we're also going to be part of a new, I get this confused because when I was talking to him, he said Major Baseball League, and I thought, man, they're getting MLB games. But no, it's a Major Baseball League. It's kind of like a beer league baseball.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah. So, and also they will soon be broadcasting collegiate hockey, I believe D3.
Okay.
So a lot of big things going on at 12-ounce. Obviously, want to give them a kudos and a shout-out anytime. It's, coming from a small streaming radio station to what they've been doing in just a few short years is pretty remarkable. So kudos to them again, and obviously we appreciate them putting our dribble on, I guess, every week.
Yeah.
As I continue to dribble on here.
That's much appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. So
cut us a check.
Yeah, cut us a check. Well, they got to cut themselves a check first.
Fair enough.
But hopefully they're in the right direction. Okay, Super Bowl 54. You talked about it right before I named the sponsors. Shanahan, who's to blame?
Yeah.
Yes, Garoppolo had an untimely pick in the end of in the first half. Didn't particularly, didn't particularly care that he threw that. I say the most onus is on Shanahan for two reasons. At the end of the first half, 3 timeouts with about 1:50 left. Didn't call one, let the clock run down, and then finally when they got a big play with, 35, 40 seconds left,
then
they tried to go
one.
for it, and then they got the Kittle penalty, and it was just a poor use of management. I don't know if he was terrified of Mahomes getting the ball back, because at that point in time, Mahomes had been pretty putrid to that point. And actually, for 3.5 quarters, I thought Mahomes was pretty putrid. And at the end of the game, when you should have been running that clock and making Kansas City burn the timeouts, you decided to throw. And you were throwing passes that were in dangerous spots where I don't know if that was schemed that way or if Garoppolo just decided to throw to the wrong look.
Yeah, it was. I mean, nothing about it was great, but the throwing instead of running the ball, especially when Garoppolo wasn't able to hit targets, just absolutely killed him. I think the stat that I read that was really telling was after they went up 20-10, their average time of possession was 51 seconds.
Correct.
And that's not something you can do to run the clock down. No,
it's hard to burn clock, and especially that brings me back to the next point is while burning clock is obviously a fine strategy, Kansas City showed you why not stepping on their throat and staying on their throat is exactly why they are Super Bowl champions.
Yeah.
Because if you stay within arm's reach, Kansas City is that deadly as long as Mahomes can turn it on. And like I said, for 3.5 quarters, he looked like garbage. And finally, something clicked, and he did. He turned it on, and a 10-point lead was just not safe.
Yeah, and, it was credit to Kansas City. At some point, you do have to give them credit. I thought Andy Reid would figure out a way to fuck up the clock, and he didn't. And that's to his credit. And, Mahomes did Mahomes things, and that Kansas City looked like they actually wanted to play a full 60 minutes, and San Francisco seemed like they were fine sitting back and kind of letting the second half happen to them.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're wanting to give, we talked about the defense of the 49ers so much in our prop bet podcast, you have to give kudos to the Chiefs defense, who actually looks like at the end played a better game consistently throughout the entire game.
Absolutely. Only gave up 20 points to a team like San Francisco that has the capability of putting up points in bunches when the offense is clicking the right way.
And I would like to give a kudos shout out to that Kansas City defense for keeping Raheem Mostert under 77 yards.
Yeah, whatever it was.
Because he got me a little rake back in the MGM contest. So
who won that bet, by the way?
I did.
You did? Okay.
Yes, I won it. I think I ended up with like a $90. So I won 50 from everybody, which just covers our $50 difference, and then I won 100 from the tokens total.
Yeah.
And then I won $40 on the app.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice.
That worked out, and I think even with the loss, Fake Tokens still managed to profit like $10 or $20 off of the actual app, so it couldn't have hurt that bad.
So, yeah, he just pays a little bit of the loss with that. So,
yeah.
There you go. Speaking of loss, though, I had about $1,200 in action on this Super Bowl, and with all of the prop bets, etc., and all those jazz, despite the fact that some of my money was obviously on San Francisco, I still came back to only manage to lose $189.
All right, that's basically
89 with the tokens.
Yeah, I was going to say that's basically a win.
It felt like it, especially when hold on, I got to sneeze.
Oh God,
I know, I got to get all these noises out. Maybe it's gone.
Yes, because when you talk about a sneeze, it goes away.
Yeah, good. Well, then I'll remember that. Maybe we should talk about farts because they got to go away too. I'm speaking mostly for token's sake. He needs to talk about farts. Now I lost my train of thought. So it didn't feel quite like a win because of the fact that for 3.5 quarters I was probably looking at a 5K win.
Okay.
With San Francisco plus money, the under, San Francisco and the under, and I also had a nice prop that it was 10-1 for $20 on Mahomes throwing 0 passing touchdowns.
I saw that,
which for 3.5 quarters looked beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he finally managed to sneak one in there.
Yeah, the other one I was real close to was either quarterback or any quarterback throwing 3 picks, and they both threw 2. It was 6-1 on any quarterback throwing 3 picks, and I got real close to that one too. So, yeah, while it doesn't feel too terrible because of the way that the fourth quarter finished, it does feel obviously a little hurting because I did have a lot of money right there in the bank for 3.5 quarters.
Did you get Kansas City money line at any point in game?
Yes,
you did,
and that's
okay.
what saved me a little bit. I caught Kansas City money line at plus 375.
Oh, damn!
And I know you talked about them almost at 500 at that point.
Yeah, and that was because I looked at it and I put money on it before Mahomes threw the second pick, and I got it at like 250 or something. So it wasn't a great line. If I had waited for that pick, could have got it in a much better line, probably the 375 or even the 500 at one point. But no, I kind of panicked. I put in the bet, and I just wanted to make sure I had something on Kansas City at that point because I thought they could. And
well, that's what helped me kind of wade back into a smaller losing session because I had ended up putting up 200 on the plus 375 because I was like, you know what? If I win this 5K here, I'm going to be okay with losing 200. But if exactly what happens, this is like again in real time. If Kansas City comes back in this game, I'm going to feel real shitty if I end up down 1,200 because of a miracle comeback.
Oh, sure.
Not miracle, but a comeback in general. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I also feel like I got robbed. I did put Damian Williams in. He was 30-1. I had him in for $10. I felt like, although Mahomes threw for 3 touchdowns, Damian Williams' consistency throughout the game is what kept them in, and I thought he should have been MVP.
Yeah, no, he had a great game. I was really hoping for Žižić to get MVP, especially with the first half that he had. And when the voting opened, I made sure to vote as many times as humanly possible.
I'm aware. I saw that. And you know what? If he'd have gotten that second touchdown and San Francisco would have held on, I'd be putting a tattoo somewhere on my body. Right?
Yes, you would. Do you have tattoos?
I have one. They're on my arm.
You do? Okay.
And so this one probably would have gone on my butt. But, in fairness, I did put... He was 100-1 to win the MVP. I did put $10 on him.
Oh, there you go. All right.
If I had to put a tattoo somewhere on my body, I'm at least going to carry $1,000 to the tattoo parlor.
Yeah.
$1,000 richer.
That would have paid for at least a good chunk. I don't know how much tattoos are. I don't have any. So.
When I got the one I have, I think it was like 125, but it's just my initials. I think some can get up to elaborate to 4 digits.
Yeah.
And it all depends on the tattoo artist. It all depends on what you want, how detailed it is.
I've got a buddy of mine.
I don't think there's a menu board.
But I got a buddy of mine that has like full color giant angel wings on his back that go down like
that's probably
part of the way.
Minimum 500. Probably more.
I think it's probably closer to like $4,000 or $5,000.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, actually, I should text him and find out how much that ended up costing. Because he got this done probably 20 years ago, but even still, it's still quite a bit of money.
You should text your buddy. I'll set it. You can set an over/under. I'll pick.
He's in Jersey. I don't know if he's still awake because he's got 2 fucking crazy kids.
But he's definitely still awake.
Well, let's see if he's not passed out. But yeah, no, that's where the fuck is he? There he is. I just know him as B, and I always forget that his full name is in my phone. I'm like,
Beatrice?
Yes, Beatrice. All right, go ahead.
Let's see. The line, what? You said $4,000? I'll say under. I'll say you paid less.
Say under? All right.
I'll say you paid less than $4,000 for that. So, putting a bow on the Super Bowl to finish the blame game, I guess you can say, because that's always what we want to play. I just felt like Shanahan played scared. And this is a big leap here, but I gotta wonder if John Lynch has lost confidence in either Kyle Shanahan or Jimmy Garoppolo.
I mean, and this is kind of where I keep going back and forth, because Garoppolo didn't have a great season. Like, we can look at the Super Bowl and say, he didn't play a great game. He played okay. NFC Championship game, obviously, he was not a factor. But throughout the entire season, he didn't have a great time. His stats were mediocre. He threw too many picks. He made a lot of mistakes. And for a defense as good as they were, they probably needed somebody that was a little more careful with the ball. And, I hate using the term game manager, but that's more of the type of quarterback that they needed if they weren't going to have somebody like a Mahomes or fuck, I already forgot the guy's name.
Rodgers?
In Baltimore.
Oh, Lamar.
Lamar Jackson, yeah. God, season's been over a week. I already forgot Lamar Jackson's name. Jesus Christ. But yeah, that's the kind of... if they don't have that kind of quarterback, then they need just a pure, responsible, careful game manager that's not going to lose them the game when the defense does like 80% of the heavy lifting. And, for a lot of the games, even though they won, I think Garoppolo was not the knight that they needed for those games.
Well, in fairness, he did have a 102 quarterback rating, which is pretty good. Anything over 100, you're usually looking at pretty solid. He passed for 4,000 yards and 27 touchdowns. I think what you're talking about specifically is the ability to give the ball over to the other team. 13 interceptions, including 2 more in the Super Bowl. The turnovers have to come down. He's not Aaron Rodgers, but he needs to be more Alex Smith, which doesn't win you a Super Bowl, but it doesn't lose a Super Bowl. Not that Alex Smith's ever been to one, but my point being is that
he might next year if he goes to New England, which I have now heard twice.
Boy. Yeah, we've got a bunch of conspiracy theory we'll talk about later in the show here. But I don't know. I don't think he had a poor season. I think he's just limited in his capability, which seems crazy because for so long, and again, it's all potential based. For so long, it seemed like he was able to be a guy who could air it out, go win you games. Especially right when he got traded to San Francisco. What did he win? The last 6 games of the season there?
Something like that. 4, 5, or 6, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like he was able to make the throws when need be, and I don't know if... It's hard to really punish him. He played first time he's played a full 16-game season, coming off an ACL tear. I think he played fine. I think he's at least earned himself another year in terms of playing for this team. If this team, as it's currently constructed, is going to go try and make Super Bowl runs, because the defense, obviously Richard Sherman we know is old. I don't know if they're going to keep him or bring him back. I think his highlight reel in the Super Bowl might not be the best. But
that's a rough one.
Do we really feel comfortable on one of, if not all of, Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, and Tevin Coleman repeating the success they had this year?
They have a great offensive line, and that's 90% of the battle when you have
absolutely
good, talented running backs, is that you need to give them a good offensive line, and they had that. I don't know the contract situation of those guys up front, but there didn't seem to be much talk of it during the Super Bowl, which probably means that they're safe and that a majority, if not all of them, are under contract and coming back.
Right.
So you would have to think that in a situation like that, those running backs are still going to be the focal point of this offense going into next year.
And they should be. That's kind of Kyle Shanahan's thing. Run the ball, control the clock, use the quarterback play when you need to in the appropriate time.
Sure. You just wonder exactly how he feels about Garoppolo, if they're going to try to air it out more, if they want to try to improve the other weapons around them with more wide receivers. Was Kittle the leading receiver on that team? I think he ended up as that, but I don't know if
you mean for the season?
For the season, yeah. I don't know if Deebo Samuel finally passed him.
Let's see. I can look that up here real quick. It's not unheard of to believe that that's the case, but I would say you might be right with Kittle as far as the leading receiver. Deebo Samuel came on late. I don't know if he necessarily was a part of the entire game plan all year. Let's see. Team statistics. No, I want individual statistics. There we go. Rushing. Receiving. Well, Emmanuel Sanders technically led the team, but he didn't obviously play for the 49ers the entire year. Yeah, Kittle would be the leading receiver of people who played for the 49ers the entire season.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I think Kelsey might have led the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of trouble when a tight end is leading the team in receiving and his last name isn't Gronkowski, because that's typically not a recipe for success. Obviously, it worked out this year, but sometimes I wonder if that's the right way to go.
Yeah, Kittle 85 for 1053 and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, well, that's pretty strong.
Yep. So, that being said, it's hard to place the blame. I mean, you can look at the defense. Hey, the defense gave up 31 points. Damian Williams, who hadn't topped 60 yards, went for 104 and a touchdown. So, I mean, you could place blame everywhere, and I don't want to place blame on the 49ers because I thought they played a pretty good game, but you got to finish.
Yeah.
You just got to finish.
Yeah, no, especially when you have a lead like that, you got to be able to drive it home.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason for them, especially like you said. I mean, their defense was phenomenal. Their offense was good enough. Where do you upgrade? I mean, if you're going to upgrade and get better, where do you upgrade on this team other than maybe cornerback?
Yeah, I was going to say cornerback's obviously going to be in need, especially after the performance that Richard Sherman put up. I think you can do more with probably other spots in the secondary, and then,
obviously,
what's his name? Robbie Gould looked good, but he doesn't have the leg that he once did. If you want to be able to go for the 55 or 55-yard field goals, then you're probably going to need to upgrade there.
Also true.
But, it's not an immediate need, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know where the interesting spot for upgrading. Yeah, I mean, obviously the kicker, but maybe in the draft is try to find a tight end to pair with George Kittle, a la Hernandez Gronkowski.
That would be sick. Yeah,
I don't know why anyone hasn't gone back to that, including the Patriots.
I know.
I know that tight ends are hard to find, but can you imagine, like, even this year coming up, a team that goes and gets Hunter Henry and Greg Olsen? I mean, I know Greg Olsen's on the back nine of his career, but even still, I'm sure he has a lot to contribute. And Hunter Henry is one of the best tight ends coming up right now at this point.
Yeah.
He's a free agent, too, and the word out of the street is that he's probably not going to return to L.A.
Interesting. Okay.
I wouldn't mind seeing New England get that tandem.
That'd be all right, for sure, yeah.
So, all right, we're going to have Nate Wahl in here in just a few minutes to talk XFL, because football is not over, sir.
No, it is not.
The NFL is over for now. But the XFL has slotted itself in a nice little time slot. And I don't want to get too excited because I got super excited on the AAF.
Yep.
And I got so excited that I bought tickets to an AAF game, and I didn't ever end up going because the league folded. I have a little more trust that the XFL is going to last at least a full season because Vince McMahon has the funding to do.
Yeah, and they showed the financials or talked about the financials of the corporation that they created in order to fund the XFL, and it's very well funded. So there's nothing in your mind should tell you that this league is going to fold AAF style mid-season. So it's pretty strong. Plus partnering with DraftKings, that's going to be strong.
Well, McMahon is a minority owner in DraftKings.
Exactly. So that. Having that name recognition to go along with it, I think, is going to be pretty strong. So.
I mean, speaking of name recognition, the coaches even are recognizable. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Bob Stoops.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I'm sure you've heard of June Jones.
Yep.
Let's see who else they got. I'm sure you've heard of Jim Zorn.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Trestman. Old Bears coach.
Yes.
With Cutler.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's 4 of the coaches right there. Trestman's coaching the Tampa Bay Vipers at this point. So we're going to talk. I don't want to get too in-depth because we're going to talk with Nate here in just a couple of minutes.
Is Jim Fossil coaching anywhere?
I don't think so.
God.
I know his kid is on a team. I thought his kid was on, like, St. Louis.
Oh, maybe.
Lewis's coaching staff.
Yeah,
but I don't think he's on a team specifically.
No, former football coach. Huh.
But I do like the fact that, I mean, back in the day when the XFL first, the original incarnation came around, I did like the fact that the wrestlers were a part of it because I was into the WWE, or I guess, I don't know if it was F or E at that point, but I was kind of into wrestling at that point when, that was 20 years ago, I think.
Oh, my God.
I know. Well, at that time, I was like 13 years old.
Oh, fair enough. Oh, God. Son of a bitch.
But, I like the fact the wrestlers, now 20 years later, or 19 years later, I guess, officially, I like that they have a distance from that. I hope that they don't bring on wrestling to try to merge the two entities. You get what I'm saying here?
Yeah, no,
I hope they keep them
understand.
separate. I tried to watch a wrestling match a few years ago, and it's such a bad soap opera.
Is it?
Well, at least a few years ago it was. It may have gotten better. I don't know. But it's one of the most popular sports/entertainment that's on TV right now.
Yeah, no, it obviously continues to crush, and Vince McMahon has done a good job of marketing and getting the right TV contracts and everything else. So it's been the staying power on it's unbelievable. So you really got to give him credit for that. And the people that love it really fucking love it. I remember the year before I moved to Vegas, I was living with a bunch of buddies of mine outside of Boston, a city called Somerville. Mm-hmm. And when we got the cable package, 3 of them said we absolutely have to get the wrestling channel.
There was a wrestling channel?
There was a wrestling channel. There might still be, like an extra add-on that you can get. And one of the things that we did while we were doing that was we also got one of the pay-per-view events, which is like the Royal Rumble or some goddamn thing. And these guys, we were all mid-20s, and they were fucking hooked. They loved it. So,
I guess you while we poke fun a little bit, I guess you can't really say much because it's the same as a housewife watching afternoon soap opera.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It's just a little more action.
Yeah.
I think you were the one telling me that like you can find the scripts pre-show.
I've heard that. I've been told that by people who are wrestling fans. I haven't looked for them myself, but yes, supposedly they are out there prior to these matches going on air.
All right, well, we're going to have Nate on here, like I said, and let's actually bring him aboard. He is ready to go. So again, with 12-Ounce Sports Radio lead writer Nate Wahl is joining us to discuss the XFL. Nate, how you doing today, buddy?
Not much, man. I just really hope the XFL doesn't leave me without a writing gig halfway through the season.
That's very fair. We were talking about that right before we had you on, about the AAF. We were jazzed up about it. I watched at least one game every week of the Alliance of American Football. The app was pretty cool, even though it had a few kinks to work out in the beginning. And then finally, when I bought tickets, they folded.
Yeah, I was kind of getting stoked because there was a lot of talk about 12-Ounce Sports going to the championship game. But, I think Steve Spurrier closed the deal and Paulo's got it done.
Yes.
In retrospect.
Speaking of the championship game, it was initially supposed to be here in Las Vegas.
Yes, it was.
They changed it to, I think, Dallas?
Yeah, I think it was Jerry's World.
Jerry Jones' practice facility, yep.
But I believe we set the line at like 23,000 people showing up for that game.
Yes.
I think the under hit.
Technically, yeah.
Well hit.
Or do we get bet refunded at that point?
I think everyone should refund, yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to get the AAF tickets refunded. I think it took about 2 weeks because they were like, well, the league is not officially folded. Like, Ticketmaster was just dragging. Which I guess they had a right because they didn't want to refund all the tickets and then the AAF get a buyer and be like, yeah, we're back on, see you next week. And then everybody's like, well, no, I just gave my tickets back. But, all right, so the XFL, Vince McMahon's new project here, it was announced in 2018 with him and Oliver Luck being commissioner, I guess, owner, Vince McMahon, commissioner, Oliver Luck. The season structure, I'll just go over that and we'll get into some more details with Mr. Wahl here. The XFL has planned to have a 10-week regular season with each team hosting 5 home games, no bye weeks, which is an interesting one too, especially for football. This will be followed by a 2-week postseason featuring the top 2 teams in each conference. There are 2 conferences competing in one single elimination bracket, so basically a Final Four in that spot. The league will be split into 2 conferences of 4 teams, 8 teams total. Each team will play all 3 teams in their conference twice, one home, one on the road. Each team will also then play the remaining teams in the league just one time. Same schedule used by the original XFL and the AAF. Both leagues follow an Eastern-Western conference. The XFL confirmed during the summer showcase in Dallas that the teams In the East will include New York, D.C., Tampa, and St. Louis, and the West will include Seattle, Los Angeles, Dallas, and Houston. I am bummed that there is not a team in Vegas. Spike.
Yeah, I would have preferred to have seen Vegas, but the cities where they have teams make sense, so I can't fault them for putting teams there.
I
But,
get that.
I think just based on travel costs and getting people to and from, I think Vegas probably makes more sense than Seattle, just because it's so close to Los Angeles. You could have built a natural rivalry there. So,
Right.
I obviously would have rather seen that, and greedily, it probably would have been a good opportunity to get tickets for cheap for football, because obviously the Raiders tickets are going to be nuts, and
Yeah, for sure.
and UNLV tickets, then you'd actually have to sit and watch a UNLV game, and nobody should be subjected to that.
So, Nate, the first thing I noticed with this entire situation is hopefully we have what Spike just alluded to. We can develop rivalries. New York and D.C. could be one, especially Dallas and Houston as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think really it's just going to have to, there's a lot of guys when I look at these teams and I'm like, I remember when they're arch rivals, in the AAF, and now they're teammates, or teammates again. I saw that one scenario with the Arizona Hotshots running backs. Two of them are actually on the same team, so it'll be interesting to see who is the inferior rivals of each other, and I also am curious who's going to have the most rabid fan base. I mean, we all see the crazy Bills fans in the NFL. Who's going to be the Bills Mafia of the XFL? I guess I'd have to probably put money on, a team like DC, F. Hamilton. I really think he's a kind of a fiery coach from what I've seen, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. It would definitely be interesting to see these coaches, and you alluded to it. We'll talk about the coaches here in a second. The other thing I really noticed that was different than the AAF, because the AAF generally I saw was on CBS Sports Network. We got XFL games on big time networks: ABC, ESPN, Fox Sports.
Yeah, I mean, they hit that on the head. I think that's really where the AAF missed is, everyone has CBS Sports Network in their cable package. Everybody has ESPN, Fox. Yeah, they have all of those in their cable package. So they kind of have, the big networks. And, I also think they hit it with the announcers, too. I think Bill Klatt's a real knowledgeable guy. And I'm also excited for Kurt Menefee, who, both very loyal to Fox. Both, tenured guys that know their football. And, I think they'll be good guys in the announcing booth.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about Kurt Menefee, Joel Klatt. I know I listened to a radio show this morning that said Steve Levy was going to be one of the main guys on the ESPN broadcast as well. Probably ABC, obviously, being that they're for the same company. What's the first thing that you noticed that you're most excited about this entire XFL concept?
I think it's just, to see kind of, I want to see where what Vince McMahon's done to get the league to be better than it was in 2000. I remember as a 9-year-old kid, just towards the end of the year when they were basically saying we're dead. I just want to see the excitement and see how they've improved the league. I think they have a good lineup of coaches that, not all of them have been head coaches in the NFL, but they've been defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. So I just want to see the level of excitement, from the cities. And I think they picked cities that, I wish they would have picked cities that don't already have NFL teams, like Tampa Bay, New York,
right,
Seattle, teams like that. Just to kind of, that was what I liked about the AAF. They picked teams like Birmingham, who really all Alabama has is college football. And
right.
I just wish they would have gone that route, but I'm just kind of, they kind of had a dummy run in 2000 with the XFL. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of look at that and they're like, okay, where do we screw up and, kind of make things better. And I think, Oliver Luck also seems like a guy that, I think he brings, before, from what I remember, it was just Vince. And, Vince is an entertainer.
Right.
I think they kind of needed a day-to-day guy to kind of, settle Vince down. This isn't WWE. You're not throwing tables at each other and hitting people with chairs. This is a real league. So, I think just to kind of have a more day-to-day guy, a face that people know is going to help them out.
Yeah, most definitely. I remember 20 years ago when the opening kickoff would be basically whoever wants the ball, they got to run to the middle.
Yep.
And it was just like a battle royale for possession of the ball. So that'll be interesting. At this point in time, the site of the 2020 XFL Championship game that will be played April 26th has not been announced. Spike, I say we get on the bandwagon and try to make it in Vegas.
It makes sense, especially when it does sound like they're trying to embrace the gambling aspect like the AAF did. So having it here in Vegas makes total sense, and I think they could do very well for themselves, and especially if they somehow expand and put a team in Vegas later on.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing I can see down with that, which for me personally, I don't give a shit because I want to see this, is that, travel, are people going to travel to, see an XFL team? The only thing I think that the only place I think they would travel to would be Vegas. How cool would that be to come in for a weekend in April? Rooms are generally usually cheap around that time. The only question is I don't know where they're going to play. Obviously, the Raider Stadium's not going to be ready by April, and Sam Boyd's a dump.
Sam Boyd is a dump, but I'm looking actually at tickets at each individual arena right now as we speak. And one of the things I'm noticing is that all of the upper decks are completely blocked off. They're only selling tickets in the lower bowl.
Now, it makes sense.
It makes total sense, but that also means that Sam Boyd actually becomes a viable option because you don't have to worry about all those extra seats up in the top.
Because they don't
and
exist.
Up in oh, yeah, exactly. So you don't have to worry about the stadium looking empty because the stadium is basically just going. Yeah, it's the lower bowl anyway.
Yeah, for sure. If you had a vote, Nate, where would you like to see the championship game be played?
I just had a question about that. What if we find out the league is not doing well attendance wise? Why not play it at like Bishop Gorman High School? It's a football powerhouse. They're on Netflix at QB1, even though Nate Martell is kind of in a bust.
It's true.
But I think Vegas, obviously is the gambling mecca and the sports betting mecca, but I feel like you could almost put it, because with all the states expanding to get sports betting, a state like, I don't know, I think Indianapolis would be a good spot just because Indiana just got sports betting. You have a great stadium in Lucas Oil. I've seen games in there. I think it would be a really good spot. And, it's kind of in the middle of the country, so you can get your fans from New York pretty well. You can get your fans from St. Louis pretty well. That would be probably my spot if I had to pick one.
Fair enough. I could see that definitely being a viable option as well. As it currently stands, this league will be played between the months of February and March and April, which is the months between the Super Bowl and the NFL draft. I think it's a perfect slot to be in. People are still craving football, and here you are to give it to them. The question I have, and I hope Vince McMahon either agrees with me or stays out of this, they can't try to compete with the NFL like they did last year. Is that correct? Or not last year, last time.
Yeah, that was kind of their big thing. They tried too hard to give either what they thought was a better option to the NFL. They need to kind of associate themselves as their own league, and until they show that they can get attendance up, they can get merchandise sales up, that they can get through a season without havoc. They just need to kind of start from the ground up and realize that people love football, and if you give them a quality product, which the AAF to me was a quality product, they just had a bunch of idiots that were running the league that just didn't know what the hell they were doing. If they can put together a quality product and people are coming out to games, and I think they just need to nail down, okay, can we do this? Do we have the right personnel? And if they do, I think they can be successful. I really do.
Fair enough. Especially one part of the success will obviously be the talent on the field. Let's talk about compensation for that talent, because there is there's a pay gap, but I don't know if necessarily it's good or bad for the league. Obviously, the XFL will use a standard contract paying each player $2,725 per week, 1,000 of which is guaranteed. There is a victory bonus of $2,222 paid to each player on the winning team. Apparently, that was a staple from the original XFL. However, starting quarterbacks are expected to make up to 10 times the amount as every other person on the team. Now, when asked, Oliver Luck said that he wanted to ensure better quarterback play, and with a subtle jab at the AAF, which is ironic because some of the AAF quarterbacks are in the XFL, like Luis Perez, I saw naming one. He wanted to ensure that, unlike the previous league, there was top-tier quarterback play, which there are a couple here that Aaron Murray being one right off the bat that piqued my interest. Starting quarterbacks, the average XFL quarterback can be expected to earn anywhere from $125,000 to $495,000 a year.
That's not bad.
Not too shabby. I mean, that's a league. You get up to $495,000. That's over the league minimum of sitting on the bench or holding a clipboard for the Chiefs, like Aaron Murray was doing for so many years. The rosters will be 52, which is up from the 38 of the original XFL, and it is supposed to be on par with the 53-man rosters. What do you think about compensation for these guys? I know that it may change later as the XFL gets more or less popular. Obviously, they'll be bringing in more or less dollars at that point. But to start out, obviously, there's not going to be a labor union or collective bargaining because the XFL doesn't have a players' association at this point. But Nate, the starting salaries, I guess you could say, are pretty online, a little above the AAF. But this looks like something for a guy who trying to make a league, trying to make a paycheck. This looks like something that's a little more enticing than the Alliance would have been last year.
Yeah, I would definitely say that, I know there was some scrutiny about, the pay in the XFL, how originally there was something like $55,000 a year or whatever these guys are going to make. I think it's a better option. I think, they increased the pay. Now, the thing I don't really agree with, I don't think it's fair to give a quarterback, 10,000. I ran through the depth chart. I mean, yeah, there's some good quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but I just think 10 times. I mean, yes, quarterback is your star of the show. He's the guy that Patrick Mahomes gets it done. But in a situation like this, I mean, I think they, maybe are a little too high on that. If it was 5 times versus 10 times, I think, then you're in that 200, 300,000 range. I think that'd be a better number. Because I think, there are some dominant players in this league that I think can be really good. It's just a matter of, if you're kind of, it's kind of like, for example, a kid comes in off the street, Harvard grad, and you have some guy that's been working at your company for 50 years, and this Harvard grad wants, 5 times the salary he does. But you know that you can get rid of this guy and then get the job done faster with this other guy. What route are you kind of going to go? You're going to probably go with the young guy. So, in a situation like that, I think a little bit less for quarterbacks because, yeah, they're the star of the show. They're the kind of the heat of your franchise, but at the same time, it's almost a disservice to the guys that are, your wide receivers, your running backs, your defensive ends, your linebackers, players like that. I think also make a good difference.
To be fair, at this point, we are still in the infant stages of the XFL. All of this could be subject to change depending on how much money this league generates, because that would be the big thing is obviously the NFL at one point in time. I get the salary gap. I understand kind of why they're doing it, because the quarterback is the most important position in football, if not all of sports. The one thing I can see backfiring with this spike is the fact that if a quarterback in this league struggles, say Cardell Jones or Aaron Murray come out and they don't perform well, they are going to get ridiculed by most fans or media members about getting 10 times more money than the guy who just planted him into the ground.
Oh, for sure. And but looking at it from the owner's perspective, it makes sense because especially in the first couple of weeks, the quarterback is the name that is going to be announced the most. It's the name that you're going to hear the most. So it's the name that the fans are going to latch on to the most, which means that those are the guys that are selling your jerseys, selling your T-shirts and everything else. So I think in a way the 10 times number kind of makes sense to me. But yeah, you're right. They do throughout the entirety of the season. They have to play well, or at least well enough to keep their jobs in order to justify that kind of a number.
I mean, with all due respect, playing 10 weeks of football, potentially 2 more. I don't know if there'll be playoff bonuses. But getting $27,000 for playing 10 weeks of football is not too bad of a job.
Sure. No, I'm sure there's plenty of people that would like that kind of job.
And a potential to...
like that kind of work.
Even though this isn't a minor league system for the NFL, there is a potential to... I mean, you got to think, Nate, that there's going to be scouts at every one of these games.
Oh, yeah. I definitely think having scouts at games, I think there's going to be a large amount of, players that... I mean, just like we saw at the AF, I mean, can't remember what the number was, but they signed a lot of guys. I remember counting it at one point. I think it was around 75, 80 guys that, signed NFL contracts. Now, a lot of those guys I'm seeing, like Rashad Ross, who I thought would have definitely made an NFL roster, are still, trying to get back to the NFL. But, I mean, guys like that, I mean, there are going to be NFL scouts. And, I mean, it's going to be a situation, your teams like, the Giants, the Jets, teams that, have teams like the Guardians that are in especially close proximity and playing in probably the same stadium, I would think. They're going to get recognized, and it's going to be a real easy trip for those scouts to go out to New York or Seattle or, Tampa Bay is another one, or obviously DC, because it's versus going to somewhere random like the AAF had, like going to Birmingham or whatever the case may be. It's going to be easier for them to kind of scout talent versus, scout. Obviously, they're still going to heavily weigh the college scouting, but they're still going to get a glimpse of a lot of guys very close to them.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, let's talk about some of the rules, because this is not going to look like your typical NFL game. So the rule changes, I ended up printing out a lot of them, because there are a lot that don't look like NFL, and even some of the AAF. Because the AAF, if you remember a year ago, they eliminated kickoffs, which we are going to bring back in the XFL. The XFL has, let's start with kickoffs. The XFL has had an active interest in reviving that element to the game. So talk about the kickoff, because it's supposed to be at the team's 25-yard line, which we know in the NFL it's at the 35. So obviously we're looking at actual kickoffs here in the XFL. We may have lost him. Nate?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know you were talking. Yeah. I mean, I think it'll create like a, the kickoff. So many kickers' legs are getting stronger and stronger every year. And, in the NFL, we see it. These guys are just booting the ball, back of the end zone. You never, you get your kickoffs, don't get me wrong, but, this is going to ensure that, it gives them a little more leg, that, you're going to have some returns. And, I think going back to what you said about their old way, of, everyone kind of goes to the middle of the field, that's obviously going to be, that was a safety hazard, and hopefully they went away from that.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing I liked about it is, although the kicker will be at the 25, the kickoff team, the receiving team will be at their 30-yard line. So you're talking about, some definite collision spike. Before the ball is caught, or 3 seconds after it hits the ground, nobody can move. Only the kicker and returner.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And I was reading that, and I tried to figure out exactly why that made sense. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that opens up the field so that the runner can basically get a head start and start.
Well, I'm saying the kickoff team is at the other 35.
Right.
So if you're, say, the 25, the average kicker's going to kick it to the 5 or 10.
Sure.
The receiving team will already be at the 35, but they cannot move until the receiver touches it, or it's been on the ground for 3 seconds.
Yeah, that 3-second rule is going to be kind of strange because the refs are going to have to count it off, and you wonder if they're going to count it based on the game clock or if they're just going to kind of do like a.
Well, is the game clock going to run?
A 5-second violation like in the NBA. So you wonder how that's going to get kind of scored and kind of counted. But yeah, no, it's interesting to me because I'm curious to see.
I'm curious to see onside kicks if they're going to have those.
Yeah, they are going to have those, but the team doing the onside kick has to tell the refs beforehand, so it can't be a surprise. So, and I don't know if there are special rules of how they have to line up and all that, but I do know that it can't be a surprise onside kick.
That takes a little fun out, but that's still cool.
Yeah, but I'm very curious to see how the field will open up for all these people to start running around and cracking each other in the skulls. So
Can't wait.
I think that's what more people want to see.
Staying in the kicking game, punts. The XFL will not allow gunners. All players must remain behind the line of scrimmage until the ball is kicked. So a little bit same ordeal with the kicks as the punt. Touchbacks brought to the 35-yard line. So, punts may be taken out, but at the same time, we may be looking at more offense. Punt returners have a little bit more field to run.
Yeah, they're giving the coaches a little more incentive to go for it.
Also true.
Especially if you can't get the gunners going. So it makes a little bit of sense. It's another rule change that I'm curious to see exactly how it affects the game because, even having the gunners, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get down the field in time to make the play because they're always covered. They're always, and half the time they're pushed out of bounds anyway. So I'm curious to see exactly how much that affects the punts that we're used to seeing.
Speaking of going for it, Nate, this one might be one of my favorites as far as scoring. The point after has a little bit of a variance here. The extra point will no longer be in play, the extra point kick. Instead, there will be varying point values depending on how far out from the goal line you'd like to go for it. Nate, I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I believe it's the 20, the 10, and the 5. And I believe the 5 is 1 point.
I see 2, 5, 10.
2, 5, 10. The 2-yard line, you'll get 1 point. If you're at the 5-yard line, you get 2 points. If you're at the 10-yard line, you get 3 points. I think it's gonna make the scores. They always talk about score-namis and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get some goofy looking scores. It might be like a 54 to 19 game, and there's gonna be like it's very interesting, and I do like that because I think it going for 2 is something that eliminating the extra point. I think it's smart in a way, even though it probably does hurt your kickers a little bit because the kicking game. But I think relying more and more on your offense that you have to go for 2. It's not like you have the option to go for 2. I think that's going to be a big thing because no, as far as I know, no league has really done that. So to kind of have that is I think very catchy.
Yeah, and going for 2, meaning that 2-yard attempt would only score you that extra point. So you're talking about a difference of 3 yards in terms of 1 point extra added to your touchdown or 2 points. 10-yard attempts, I'm sure, aren't going to be. I think 10-yard attempts are going to be in the realm of the 2-point attempts. When a team's down by a lot, then they're going to start these 10-yard attempts because I don't see in the beginning of the games or the middle of the games too many 10-yard attempts being taken by teams. But as the clock gets down and the time gets later and the team gets more desperate, I can see the 10-yard attempts later in the game. The other thing that was cool about the point afters is that you remember, Spike, like if you block a point after and the team returns it, usually it's a 2-point conversion for the defense.
Yeah.
In the event the defense secures a turnover and returns it all the way to the house, that defensive team will score the same number of points as the offense was aiming to score.
Yeah, it seems a little strange that a 90-yard defensive return gets you 3 points, but a 99-yard defensive return gets you
1 point. Yes.
So it's probably a little backwards, but it's not something that's going to come up all that often where people are going to complain about it. So it's just one of those things that's kind of a nifty little rule that it's not a flat number of points. It's something that's going to vary by what the offense does, and I think that the defenses will be hungry to score those extra points and kind of make it that big swing.
Yeah, most definitely. The other thing I'm interested in is the double forward pass, which we do not have in the NFL. Teams will be able to attempt 2 forward passes on the same play as long as the ball never crosses the line of scrimmage before the second pass.
Right.
So that creates a whole new brand of offensive scheming and defensive mindset.
Can you imagine if the Saints had the opportunity to do that with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill and Drew Brees?
Holy cow.
Yeah, that would have been unbelievable.
That'd be an offense.
Nate, we've got a running clock outside of the 2-minute warning, only stopping during changes of possession. Do you like the running clock simply for time purposes, or are you more of an original guy where the clock should stop? How do you feel about the running clock?
See, I like the running clock because, everybody loves watching football, don't get me wrong, but, there are games, that I watch, high school games, that I do now that I'm like, God, this freaking game just be over.
Takes
and it's not that you don't like the sport, it's just more that, like, you want the game to, it's like people say why they don't play golf, because it takes 6 hours to play 18 holes. If people could play in 3 hours, I bet there'd be a lot more golfers on the golf course. Like, I feel the same way with football, people always think time is such a huge deal, and, if they can watch a game in 2 hours and get their laundry done in that last hour, it sounds stupid, but time is of the essence to everybody nowadays. So
it is true. You're looking at everybody. The baseball's trying to speed up the game, basketball's trying to speed up the game. So yeah, time. It's funny for a sports fan like me. I don't worry about it, but I understand why, to the general consensus, that the time is a factor. People want to get their game in as little amount of time as possible. A couple other things I see here as far as rule changes, not necessarily rule changes, but differences than other leagues. 2 timeouts per half instead of 3. Instant replays, here you go, Spike, limited to 60 seconds, and there are no coaches' challenges. The Sky Judge, which came from the AAF, will review all plays.
Yeah, I love the fact that they're using the Sky Judge. I think the 60-second rule is a little strange. I understand that they want to get the game going, but at some point you have to say it's more important to get it right.
That may change, but right now I think, like when Nate was talking about with the time, hey, let's not overthink this. Whatever your gut says, go with your gut.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. And that's probably going to stay the rule until there's a monumental fuck up that that gets enough controversy or gets enough heat on Twitter and from the fans saying, hey, this is something that needs to be changed. Give the refs all the time they need to look at this thing, especially when it's that close. But they're doing a lot to within the rest of the rules to try to help speed that up. So catch, you only need 1 foot or one part of the body to stay in bounds as opposed to 2.
Mm-hmm.
With no coaches challenges, you don't have to worry about a coach doing that. Just kind of willy-nilly, like it's coming from the unbiased Sky Judge, so you don't have to worry about a ref trying to game the system, so to speak, kind of Belichicking his way through the challenge. So I kind of appreciate the way that they're setting this up, and you're right, it is subject to change, but I don't think it will until there's a problem that affects the outcome of a game that everybody at home gets upset about.
Now here's another one that I'm excited about as well. The entire team on the field will be connected to the coordinator in terms of radios in the helmets.
Oh.
Versus just the quarterback like you have in the NFL. And also, that radio will not turn off.
Interesting.
So, and I heard this, Steve Levy was on the morning show, Dan Patrick show, and he kind of made a joke about it. He said basically, so the quarterback will be in connection, well, among with the rest of the team, the quarterback will be in connection with the coordinator. So basically, if the quarterback's looking the wrong way, the coordinator can say, hey, look, he's open on the left. I thought that was pretty funny. Nate, what do you think about that? Everybody being tapped in. I mean, obviously that eliminates the no-huddle offense.
I feel like it turns into a game of Madden when you have people at your house and you're playing people in Madden, and they're like in the background, hey, throw to X or throw to circle. It's like you almost have another set of eyes on your game. It's not just that might improve some passer ratings. That might improve some deep balls. You might get some deep balls or some players open, or somebody misses their route and they end up taking it in for 6. I mean, I like it. I think it's innovative. I think it makes a different element. It gives you not just one set of eyes, but probably a dozen set of eyes. So I mean, I like that. It connects. And I can't wait for the shit talking they're gonna do on those headsets. They're gonna be like, oh, this guy is a frickin' what or whatever. I think it just brings an extra fun technology element to the game that the AAF kind of had. But I think it's a good idea.
Here you go, Spike. We're going to incorporate some hockey here.
All right.
Overtime decided by a 5-round shootout of 2-point conversions.
Yes. Let's go.
What do you think about that?
I think it's interesting. I know that there's been a lot of people are up in arms about the way the NFL runs their overtimes, especially after last year's AFC Championship game where we never got to see Patrick Mahomes in overtime. So I think people want to be able to see both teams possess the ball. Having it as that kind of 5-round shootout thing, I think makes a lot of sense. It's a little bit, it's kind of like the college system where both teams get to possess it, but having it as the 2-point conversion, so it's coming out from the 5-yard line and doing it, one after the other for 5 rounds makes it a little more exciting. Gets the fans kind of into it a little bit more. I like it, and I'm always up for trying new rules, especially when the current ones don't seem to be necessarily universally popular. I'd love to see something else tried there.
And the cool thing I like, Nate, about this overtime is that to speed up the game, the offense for one team and the defense for another will be at both ends of the field. So basically all they're doing is just flipping the camera. So let's just use New York and Tampa. Tampa's offense, New York's defense will be on one side of the field, and New York's offense and Tampa's defense will be on the other side of the field. The only downside I see about that is if you're a Tampa fan and you're sitting on the wrong side of the stadium during overtime, you won't be able to see your team up close come to the end zone. But I think this is pretty cool, especially for the event of speeding up the game. And I think the XFL, while speeding up the game is important, I think that leads to, you can almost kind of action camera style this. Oh, shit, the Guardians just scored. Now let's flip over to the Vipers and see what they can do. I think that creates kind of an element of suspense and excitement.
Yeah, I would agree. It's such a quick fix. And, like you said, you flip the field. So you have the guys on the other side, ready to go. It's almost like a WWE cage match. All of a sudden somebody comes from the audience, or not the audience, but the cage match where someone comes in the cage and you're like, who the hell is this guy?
Right.
And then all of a sudden you have, another fun element. And, I'm a fan of shootouts. I like how hockey does that. I like how, I play FIFA. I enjoy shootouts, when there's a tie. I think it's probably the best possible way you can settle a game because, especially with 5 opportunities, it's not like you're getting, like college football does it kind of like it, but, with 5 opportunities, if you fuck up on one, you might get the next one or the next one. And, it's kind of a situation where I know you have to get it done by 5, but I like the element, so that's where I'm at.
So before we get into the actual teams, the last element, obviously, Spike, I wanted to touch on is gambling.
Yes.
As we talked about earlier, Vince McMahon does own a minority stake in DraftKings, and the XFL aims to run not only its betting operations through that service, but they also plan to run daily fantasy football.
Aha, interesting.
I assume the legal hurdles have been cleared at this point towards that. Oliver Luck has said he anticipates mobile sports betting in many of the states that already offer it by the launch date. I've heard New Jersey's all ready to go. I haven't heard anything in Vegas other than the fact that you can bet general point spreads, totals, and things like that. I haven't seen any props or anything, and I think for good reason for Vegas, they're going to probably take a week or two to themselves be able to handicap the league.
Yeah, well, I've got lines up for the opening league, and I have the futures bets on who can win titles, or at least
correct. Yeah, the basics.
Yeah, so what's up there? But the daily fantasy is obviously a sticking point because that is illegal in the state of Nevada unless the company applies for a gaming license, but DraftKings refuses to do that because they don't want to be. They keep saying that they're not gambling, that they're not a casino, so they're not going to apply for a license because that's admitting it, so blah, blah, blah. But I think otherwise, the states that are embracing this are, the companies like DraftKings are going to be very happy about the fact that these stipulations exist because now they have another 8 weeks where they can get these daily fantasy rosters out there, all the contests that they want, and get the new games and try to get even new fans into the daily fantasy component of their products.
For sure, and not only that, Nate. At this time, every state that hosts an XFL team, with the exception of Florida, California obviously has a pending bill on the floor, has legalized gambling. So that obviously is going to play a big part in this. I know that the NFL is slowly coming towards gambling, but Vince McMahon and the XFL are taking it head on.
I think it's a really smart idea too, because I think the AAF, they like we said about the app. The app was pretty crappy from what I remember when you would try and do something with the app. But I think really what the XFL really needs to do is, I think daily fantasy is a brilliant idea. It gives you kind of, with Vince McMahon having the ties to DraftKings, he really did nail it on the head with, 7 out of his 8 teams have, sports gambling. So, I think it adds just another element, it adds another element of gambling on football for another 3 months that I think America needs. So, I think that's a good move because I think if you can get the props, if you can Patrick Mahomes or or whoever is going to score the next touchdown, I think you kind of win on that because it keeps people interested. Having a gambling effect to it.
For sure, and the AAF tried to do it, but like you said, their app was a little, let's say, spotty, to be nice. The XFL is obviously mostly partnered with ESPN and ABC, which is partnered with Caesars Entertainment. And as I understand it, point spreads, totals, and all relevant betting information will be a graphic on the broadcast.
Interesting.
It will be on the television.
Oh, I like that. And
ESPN has already come out and said they plan on aggressively promoting the gambling angle during their telecasts. I'm sure Fox, I believe Fox is one of them, and I can't remember who else is broadcasting these games. But most definitely, we're getting the gambling angle, which degenerates like us love.
Yes.
Let's get into the teams, because I know you're a big player guy, and the teams are Dallas Renegades, DC Defenders, Houston Roughnecks, Los Angeles Wildcats, New York Guardians, the Seattle Dragons, the St. Louis Battlehawks, and the Tampa Bay Vipers. But there's also a Team 9. We'll get to that in a little bit because I'm curious. It's an interesting concept with this Team 9 that they have, an unnamed team, basically. But in your opinion, Nate, let's start at the top. Who is the most popular player in this league?
I would say, just going back to the AAF and the Memphis Express, DeMarcus Gates is a linebacker I really enjoyed watching in the AAF. He just very forceful, very strong guy. I'm pretty sure he led the AAF or was up there in tackles. I think he's definitely one of the guys. Another one at quarterback is Landry Jones, from Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
He's another guy I think that would stand up. And Aaron, I wanted to tell you, your guy Scooby Wright.
Yes.
I think we talked about him. He also is back in the XFL. So
yeah, it looks like he's on the DC Defenders, so that may. See, I'm from Tampa, so I naturally am going to take a liking to the Vipers, but I might take a DC approach to it with Scooby Wright being on there. Another guy I see on the DC Defenders that interests me is Donnell Pumphrey. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was the leading NCAA rusher. I don't know if that was broken by Rashad Penny or if he broke Rashad Penny's record. But Donnell Pumphrey, I believe, all-time leading rusher in the NCAA.
As far as I know, yes. I don't have his stats in front of me, but yeah, I think he is. He's up there if he's not the guy.
But for sure, you're talking about Landry Jones. The quarterbacks are obviously the stars of this league. You got Landry Jones in one. His backup is Eric Dungy, big-time guy out of Syracuse. DC Defenders, Cardell Jones, we know about him. And then Tyree Jackson, I believe, out of Buffalo, who I thought would make the league, the NFL.
So did I.
Didn't turn out to be that way so far. Connor Cook, you remember him with a couple years with Oakland. His backup is P.J. Walker. Josh Johnson, that guy I feel like was in the NFL forever.
Yeah, he was kind of the definition of a journeyman. Oh, and one thing I just learned that before about 10 minutes ago is that P.J. Walker actually beat out Connor Cook for the Roughnecks job.
Well, there you go. So P.J. Walker's the starter then.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if Connor Cook's just not cooking, I guess, in the XFL. But I don't know. I had to throw that in there. But yeah, I don't know. That was a surprising read to me.
Yeah, a couple other quarterbacks we got. Matt McGloin for the Guardians with Luis Perez, the AAF stud we talked about. B.J. Daniels for Seattle. Taylor Heineke and Ole Miss product Jordan Ta'amu. You don't follow college, so that's not funny to you.
No. Nope, completely missed that one.
Tampa Bay has Aaron Murray and Quentin Flowers, who's probably going to spend most of his time at running back, but he is a USF product, which, if you know, is also in Tampa. So, so top to bottom, I know we just talked about the quarterbacks. Nate, who do you think is the most complete team?
As far as, from what I like, I really think the Guardians at running back, they have two guys. If you remember, the Hot Shots had one of the best rushing attacks in the AAF. They have Tim Cook, who's actually running back number one, and then they have Justin Stockton, who, he's third on the depth chart, but I think he's one that he'll definitely raise up. So I definitely think the Guardians are one. Another team that stands out to me would be the Defenders. I think, like you said, I think Tyree Jackson is, I don't know what happened with him in the NFL. I think he's going to be a stud in the XFL. I think it's really tough to see. And also, he has Terrell Presley. He was one of the top running backs in the he also has them for the Defenders. Then Rashad Ross was the top receiver. So Defenders, I think, are another team to watch.
For sure. And Spike, you might remember this name. Right. One guy that I'm definitely interested in seeing is Joe Horn Jr.
Joe Horn.
Remember that name, Joe Horn, from back in the day? I really hope the XFL embraces celebrations And Joe Horn Jr., who obviously is the son of the great New Orleans wide receiver Joe Horn, really hope he pays homage to his dad and puts a cell phone.
The flip phone under the
if he can find a flip phone, even better.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
But, he's one of the guys I'm interested in seeing as well. Nate, you were right about Tyree Jackson. I mean, you're right. Nothing seemed to kind of go right for him as far as NFL-wise, but I think he has a chance. Obviously, he has to jump Cardell Jones, but I think he has a chance to also be one of the faces of this league.
Yeah, I just Cardell Jones, I feel like is a good quarterback, but they both were kind of in that Buffalo system that obviously didn't work out. So it's one of those things to see him, in the XFL. It surprises me, but it's up to him to kind of rise above it. And like I said, I think he could be a good product. The XFL. I mean, who doesn't love a quarterback that's 6'7"? I know.
All right, so this Team 9 we were talking about, it's a little different. So the way I read it, it sounds to me like this Team 9 is going to be a farm system for the rest of the teams. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be like a free agency / farm system. So if there's, just like the AAF, there's going to be guys that are going to get cut and they're going to bring new guys in. I think that Team 9 is supposed to kind of be that, farm system / free agency as well.
That's definitely. That one was what interested me. It was, the way I read it is, like a free agency, but they're going to be assigned to teams. It'd be interesting to see how that all shapes up, because people are going to get hurt. It's football. We understand that. That's going to happen. So having these guys prepped and ready and basically a practice squad for the entire league is definitely smart thinking on the part of the XFL. Okay, as we wrap up our time here with Nate, Spike has the odds for Week 1, has the lines for Week 1 ready. So, Nate, we're going to put you to the test, and we are going to take the 4 games, and we're going to make you pick them.
Ha, ha, ha. Let's see how he does here. All right.
I'm hoping the best.
First matchup we have is the...
Wait. These are Big Wall's big picks of the week.
Big Wall's
there
big
we
picks.
go.
I like it. Oh God, we need some kind of promo teaser with the yeah, exactly.
we need a graphic.
So the first matchup is the Seattle Dragons at DC Defenders. DC Defenders are favored by 7.5 points.
I definitely think that DC has a little bit more talent from what I read on the depth chart. So I would feel comfortable taking that spread 7.5.
So DC minus the 7.5. All right. I like that one. We have second matchup, Los Angeles Wildcats at the Houston Roughnecks. Houston, a 5.5 point home favorite.
That one I don't like. I got to go with LA and on the plus 5.5. I just, Houston, just the fact that, I thought Connor Kane would be an absolute lock at quarterback. And the fact that they're going to, what do we call fiddle-dicking around with a new guy, it just surprises me. And, it's one of those things that I do think that Houston will, LA will cover the 5.5.
One guy you might know I'm interested in seeing is Coney Ely. Remember how he flamed out in New England? Defensive ends.
I'm still trying to get over the fiddle-dicking comments from Nate a second ago.
Also, one other guy to remember, if you guys remember this guy, Sean Oakman.
The Beast from Baylor?
The Beast from Baylor is a LA Wildcat. So if that's not another reason to pick 5.5, I don't know what is.
All right.
Very true.
So, next line, Tampa Bay Vipers at the New York Guardians. New York Guardians are a home underdog, getting 2.5 points.
See, I think the Guardians, they have quite a bit of talent. So, the fact that they're underdogs, I take the plus 2.5 on the Guardians. I think that's just, even though I don't like taking numbers that are that low, I'm going to take the Guardians. I think they'll either win or they'll win, just by a little bit. So, Guardians plus 2.5.
And Spike, a line for you. Joe Horn Jr. over under half a touchdown.
This is kind of the problem with not knowing exactly how the depth chart lays out. You don't know if he's a number 1 receiver or number 17. So I'm going to say under, just on the
sheer volume.
I think that's just the safer play. All right, last game features a team with the best name in the league, the St. Louis Battlehawks, traveling to Dallas to take on the Renegades. Renegades are an 8.5-point favorite.
But that one, I like Dallas. I think if you're taking the best coach in the XFL is Bob Stoops by 20 miles. I mean, it's not even close. So I think he's being the kind of the offensive mind he is. He's going to coach up those guys, and I think they'll get to 8.5. I really do. Dallas is going to be one of the top 3 teams in the XFL.
So, just based on your picks, I'm looking at everything through Covers.com. Covers.com actually agrees with you on 3 of the 4 picks. So, I don't know if you should feel really good about that, or if everybody's just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard here.
I gotta say the first week or two is darts at a dartboard.
But they're agreeing with you on the Defenders minus the 7.5. They're with you on the Wildcats plus the 5.5. They're with you on the Renegades minus the 8.5, but they actually have the Vipers minus the 2.5, traveling to New York and beating your Guardians there.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm not obviously one to say that I'm an expert in this, but I look at the Vipers roster, and they have a pretty solid roster. They look like one of the better teams in the XFL to me.
They are, according, again, to Covers.com, and I'm not entirely sure where they got that line. They explain everything, but I'm not going to read it because the type's too small and my glasses aren't working. But they have the Dallas Renegades at 3-1, so they are the favorites to win the title. But second is Tampa Bay at 4-1, and then New York comes in at 4.5-1. And then everybody else is at the 650.
I might be biased, though, because they have 2 UCF guys and a Florida State guy.
Oh, there you go.
So my bias might be showing in that spot. So, all right, Nate, it's time to make your championship pick. Who is going to win this league?
I think it's going to be the New York Guardians.
Oh.
There's got to be one New York team that can actually win a championship recently. There's no more Eli in town. It's not going to be the Giants. It's not going to be Sam Darnold. It's going to be the New York Guardians. You're going to win the XFL. There you go. There's my pick.
You heard it there first. And if you bet them right now, you can get them at
4.5-1.
There you go.
That's not bad.
All right, Nate, we'll go throw down a bet for you on the New York Guardians futures. And
sounds good.
Obviously, we appreciate all the knowledge, all the insight, and we're obviously going to have you back throughout the season to talk more XFL. You can also catch Nate. He's going to be writing on the XFL for 12 Ounce Sports Radio. Nate's Twitter handle is
The Brick Wall 87 WAHL.
The Brick Wall 87. You can catch all of his tweets, all of his writing over there, and of course at 12 Ounce Sports Radio. Nate, as always, we appreciate your time, and we can't wait to talk to you again.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
Talk
buddy.
soon.
That was Nate Wahl, the Brick Wall 87 on Twitter, WAHL. He's all things XFL. I can't wait for the XFL to get started.
Yeah, and believe it or not, actually talking to him made me more excited for this league.
I know you were a little more pessimistic on the AAF with obviously good measure.
Yeah, and that was the backing on that, the owners on that, like everything about
Seemed
that.
like it sprang up too fast.
Yeah, it kind of made me a little nervous.
I mean, this was announced in 2018.
Yeah, and not that Vince McMahon had overwhelming success the first time that he had the XFL, but he had mistakes, which I think he can learn from. He has the money, he has the backing. Having the partnerships with DraftKings, having the TV deals and everything else, not having Opie and Anthony doing the announcing for it or the pregame kickoff.
Or The Rock doing introductions.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that's going to help. So,
although if you brought back The Rock to do introductions, it might be more popular now.
That's true.
He's more mainstream.
He is very mainstream, and I know my wife's good friend is a giant crush on him, so she might actually
start watching. Are you your wife's good friend?
No.
You should be.
No. just
okay, you like The Rock. He's a handsome man.
Just keep going.
The one thing I said this when the AAF, the one thing I worry about, and I know that we say it time and time again, you can't get enough football. The one thing I worry about is sometimes, even for me, like, I like the fact that there are some Sundays that I get back again.
Yeah.
So I might only be watching Saturday games. And that's not to say I'll never watch a Sunday game, but Saturday is generally the day where I don't have much going on, unless I plan it. Sunday, generally, it was catered around football, and so now I may fill that time with going back and playing more poker or something like that. Which hopefully, since these games are on major networks, I can watch them at the poker room.
Yeah, I would be curious, especially in Las Vegas, if any of the rooms start doing promos for XFL games.
It would be interesting.
I don't know that they would, but...
you definitely don't want to do splash pots every time they score, because these games can do 200 points.
So I think that'll be sort of an interesting spread to see if they do that kind of thing. But, no, I'm with you. You know, I appreciate the fact that the league is small. I appreciate the fact that they're putting the games on back-to-back as opposed to putting two games on at the same time and trying to make them fight out regionally. I think what I'm going to do is kind of look through these rosters, see if there's a team that has a bunch of guys that I either recognize or like a bunch of guys from like BC or UNLV or like teams that I know relatively well, and then just kind of glom onto them. I saw that Houston has a couple of guys from Boston College, so I thought that was
that might be your team.
That might be my team, but we'll end up seeing how it goes. But
the gambling aspect's got to be the huge part of this.
Yeah, the gambling's going to be the big draw for this, especially for the people that like us that can't stay away.
For sure. And speaking of gambling, I wanted to give a shout out. We were back and forth on Twitter. I've been following his picks the last few days to Philly Pete at the Real Pete Tuck TUCC. Guy's been on fire. Hockey betting wise lately.
Yeah?
And I tailed him one day and I said, hey, if you have a profitable day today, we'll give you a shout out on the Vegas Squares. And he did.
Oh, shit.
So I just wanted to give him a shout out. Shout out Philly Pete. He also has a show on 12 Ounce Sports Radio that you can check out. I'm not 100% sure the time, so you'll have to get that from the listings on 12ouncesports.com. As we wrap up the show here, I wanted to circle back to Garoppolo because there have been a few fun little nuggets on Sports Talk radio and television.
Is this fun or is this just torture?
What?
Trying the Jimmy G talk and the where are the quarterbacks going to go talk.
It can be torture because if you follow every single rabbit hole down, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. But I don't remember the last time I've seen a Super Bowl participant at quarterback be talked about as being cut or moved.
Yeah.
Can you remember anything along those lines? Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think like all the way back to like Trent Dilfer, who wasn't super popular. Maybe Christ, who was Tampa Bay's quarterback when they lost to the Raiders?
Oh, they beat the Raiders.
Or
Brad Johnson.
beat the Raiders, yeah.
He still had a couple more years before he finally got cut.
Did he? Okay.
But I mean, we're talking that Super Bowl was 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And we're talking about him being moved, cut. They don't have trust in him anymore, which I can believe. If Shanahan came out and said it, it wouldn't shock me if he said he didn't have a lot of faith in Garoppolo, because at times during the Super Bowl, it kind of looked like that.
Yeah, and you got that impression too, especially early on, but then as the game progressed, he seemed to have apparently more faith in Garoppolo because Garoppolo was throwing a lot more, which
is when they should have been running the ball.
Yeah,
it's a weird
concept. It was a very strange game plan.
But that being said, we were talking about Garoppolo has been talked about being cut and also being traded, and the craziest thing that has come out is what you told me off the air.
Yeah, and this was courtesy of my father, who is both the most pessimistic human on the planet, especially as a Boston sports fan, and he firmly believes basically every conspiracy theory he hears.
Boy.
So
how solid is that tinfoil hat he wears?
It's pretty strong. Fortunately, he lives in a town of like 14,000 people where he doesn't have to worry about government surveillance, so he thinks. But yeah, no, his theory right now is that the San Francisco 49ers pick up the free agency of one Mr. Tom Brady, And then they let Jimmy Garoppolo taste the sharp side of the axe. And then
walking papers.
And then the Patriots signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a deal and pick him up and throw him on the roster and let the two of them battle it out.
Yeah, it's crazy as it sounds. Like I said, I can't buy a Super Bowl participant doing anything with their quarterback because maybe it's never happened, but this might be something that's revolutionary because the other situation that I have heard, it doesn't necessarily involve Tom Brady to the 49ers, but it's very similar. The New England Patriots have the 23rd pick in the first round.
Yes.
They let Tom Brady walk.
Okay.
They trade that 23rd pick and another pick to get Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but if you're the San Francisco 49ers and you're Kyle Shanahan and you're John Lynch and you have no more faith or confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo, you traded a second-round pick to get him, and for 3 years' work, which is really only 1.5, you get back a first-round pick and, let's just say, a third-round pick.
Yeah.
That might not be the craziest thing. And you can still sign Tom Brady if you want to.
That's true.
But you got a Super Bowl run out of it. Belichick gets his guy back. And to be honest with you, what quarterback in the draft at the 23rd pick is better than Jimmy Garoppolo?
I don't even know who's coming out.
Joe Burrow's not going 23rd. He's going 1 to 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And probably 1. Tua is going early. Justin Herbert's been running up draft boards. Those are the 3 guys I would say that are most pro-ready. There are some other guys that probably aren't worth the 23rd pick.
I was just about to ask, what about Jake Fromm?
Jake Fromm has been projected 2nd or 3rd round. And you could still draft Jake Fromm, even trading for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
If you keep your 2nd-round pick. But starting right now, Belichick's, 68?
Yeah, he's up there.
He's not in a 5-year plan at this point, especially if he's ready to cut ties with Tom Brady.
Right.
Which he was allegedly 3 years ago.
Well, and there was a report that came out today that said that the insider has said that Belichick would, quote, prefer to keep Tom Brady.
Well, consider the alternative at this point.
Right, yeah, which is
Jarrett Stidham or drafting a guy and hoping he pans out year one.
Finding somebody in free agency.
Which is what? Phillip Rivers, Marcus Mariota, maybe Tannehill if they don't tag him, which they're going to.
What about Teddy Bridgewater?
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater seems like the guy who would be interesting. I don't know. I like him as a quarterback, but does he fit the system? He does fit the system of short passes.
Yeah. It would be interesting.
He's more mobile.
And it does seem like Taysom Hill is the heir apparent.
Which I disagree with. Even though I like Taysom Hill, I disagree with the fact that a guy who's thrown 6 career passes is going to be the heir apparent. And he's also, I believe, the same age, if maybe not older than Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah. I don't know.
Although I wouldn't mind Taysom Hill maybe going to the Patriots.
That would be interesting.
Not as a quarterback, but maybe as a multi-purpose guy. They do have some interesting decisions in New Orleans, too, because don't forget, Drew Brees is also a free agent.
Yes, and he is not only thinking about whether or not to resign somewhere, it's whether or not he should retire.
Yes, that also has come in. But I think Belichick made a phone call and said, hey, you want to come over here for 2 years? He may consider it.
That would... Ooh.
You take Drew Brees right now? As a Patriots fan?
Yeah, I think I would.
It's an interesting thought, right?
Yeah, that's a crazy one.
All right, Jimmy Garoppolo plays for the blank next year.
49ers. I don't think they give up on a guy that got him to the Super Bowl. Even with all the mistakes, I think that Shanahan thinks that he can teach Garoppolo and get him there.
Which is ironic, because I feel like Garoppolo is a very similar style quarterback to Matt Ryan, who he had in Atlanta.
Yep.
So if he's, I mean, they're tied together now at this point. I mean, they've been to a Super Bowl, they've lost a Super Bowl. The expectations are obviously going to be high. They're in a tough division, though. I mean, don't count out the Rams. They're going to be there. They were 9-7 this year. I mean, I know that's obviously a step down from Super Bowl, but 9-7, they could get better next year. Seattle's going to be in the mix.
Yep.
And if you believe Kyler Murray was really the offensive rookie of the year, you can only imagine he's going to get better too. So you would think that team might get a little better too. That might be the hardest division in football for the next few years.
And the sick thing is that that's the division that New England is playing from the NFC next year. So they're stuck playing them. So that one's going to hurt.
So, all right, let's wrap it up here. We appreciate, obviously, Nate Wahl coming on, put a bow on the NFL season, Super Bowl 54. It was unfortunate that it did not go my way. I know you were on parts of the 49ers as well.
Yeah, not as heavily as you, but I was on them.
So, and then obviously, hopefully, we'll have Nate Wahl on, if not every week, at least every other week, to give us XFL updates and his XFL picks. Hopefully, if you tail him, those picks go well. Cover seems to think so. And that being said, let's thank the sponsors: 12 Ounce Sports Radio, Zingo TV, and obviously Seat Giant. Promo code 12 Ounce Sports for discounted theater, concert, and sporting event tickets. For Spike, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening in. Token Tony and Fake Token, if you're listening, you owe me $100. We'll catch you on the next one.
And Fake Token owes me 20.